Well, welcome back. And you too, Dale.
Yeah, it's good to be back out.
So thanks everyone for joining us again. So we're going to try and get all the way through. Going to be a long one again.
Yep, lots of cars in this one.
Lots of cars, and we've seen in the opening. So bit of video, and I've packed all of the cars I've been working on, stuff that people may not even know that I've been involved in, and a bit of family stuff as well as usual.
Yep.
And we'll jump straight into it. But before we do, we need to thank you guys especially for continuing to stay with us. 12 episodes now, but also Lovells, our main sponsor.
Yep.
And also the channel's going really well, but we just need everyone to make sure subscribe. There's no cost to subscribe. You just got to go in and push buttons and things to do it, and then
hit the like button.
And if you comment, that helps the channel to grow.
Yep.
And I'll get back to you and answer your queries and questions. If you just say hello, I'll say hello back. If you got something you want to know, then I'll get back to you with that information. And a lot of people do that, and I thank you for being involved. And as Dale says, Howard loves to do that.
He does.
Yeah. So, mate, let's jump straight in.
Yep.
First one, the Bambino.
Massive car.
Now, it's funny because Rod, that we couldn't remember his name last time, Rod Vanessy with Cool Mint, he was showing his mate Alf up in Emerald what we were doing with Cool Mint. And he said, I wonder if Howard would work on a Fiat. So Rod said to me one day, do you think you'd pull on a Fiat? And I said, I don't know, send me a picture. And when the photo came through with this, I thought...
You were thinking it was something exotic.
I thought, you know what? Why not?
Why not?
So I really, at that point, hadn't even spoken to Alf. And next thing you know, the thing bobbed up on my doorstep. And it was a complete car, but it had been in a container during the floods at Emerald and went underwater.
Yep.
And there's a whole storyline behind it, and that'll be all in the build series. But you can see they're a tiny little thing sitting in the back of the ute. So not only had it been under, but it had a lot of rust previously, and it had some rust repairs. So we cut a lot of the panels off, and we're fortunate enough to get reproduction panels out of the US for it. And I didn't realise how big the following is for these little cars.
Yes, massive.
So we put all new front guards, new bonnet, new doors, and then treated it like any other build. It was just tiny.
Yeah, a little bit smaller to work on.
And it got the full treatment. And Alf, as we were progressing, and like everyone that I work with goes, oh, well, can you do that? Can you do that? Can you do that? And of course it progressed and it grew, and he ended up putting a coilover front end in it and mag wheels and the trendy trim you can see there, the bright yellow trim. The guys that I found in the US, I bought the panels off, did all these other bits and pieces.
Yep.
So we basically made it into a new car. And
it was better than you, Howard.
Was better than you, probably. And then it now sits proudly in a museum type setup at Alf's place. And like I said, there's a story behind that. And it belonged to one of his loved ones. And that we will do a full episode on that car, because we did a huge amount of work on it. So it'd be really good to see that. Straight away, we jumped into a race car, mate.
Sounds like fun.
I can't remember exactly how I got the ticket.
Yep.
But I'm thinking, the old story, someone normally gives it to you. So Heather probably bought it for me for, anniversary or something.
Yep.
So I had to wait in line for a while because I didn't want to drive Commodore. So they only had...
Why would that be?
They only had a couple of Falcons there. Anyhow, I scored a Falcon, and we got a bit of video here. And it was interesting that, I think it was 8 laps.
Yep.
And we come in off the last lap, and we're coming down to pit row, and the guys going, so how was that, Howard? And I'm going, yeah, it was all right. And he said, what do you mean? I go, well, I reckon my Mustang's quicker. So
I reckon you'd be right.
I don't know how much was done to the cars,
Yeah.
Power-wise. I mean, it was good fun, and where he was telling me to go driving-wise, he's going, go here, go there. I felt that they were erring on the safety side. But, yeah, had a good day.
Yeah.
And pretty relaxed in the driver's seat, I think. So that was just one of those days that we were out. And then we're straight into the next set of photos, and this is Blackmans Coupe. So this is Darren that works with me, and Darren had been just sort of helping out on the odds and sods, and he'd done a fair bit on the Fiat with me. And he said, what's after the Fiat? And I said, well, I don't know yet. I'll put the feelers out and see what's going on. He said, how would you feel about helping me do the coupe? So that's when we probably worked full time because he was working on his own car.
Yep.
And away we went. And he'd bought this. It was a factory blue car, but it had been a typical show car. It had been to Summernats at some stage, and then had been put to rest under a carport and was pretty rusty. But as with all these cars, and I'm finding that more and more now, is that when they go in to get blasted, not a lot comes back.
No.
And this one here, there was a couple of spots where the actual rust, you can see there where it's had a rust repair and the rust repair's rusted out.
Yeah, you know it's bad.
So I don't know, I don't know whether they had a boat that they used to put him down at
Yes.
Thirroul or somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Used to go down to the axles in the salt water, but
It looks
of
like it.
Yeah.
So, and it had also had a bit of underside damage where it had been treated pretty poorly. So we actually cut, you can see the front diagonals are missing off it, where the caster bars go. And back then they weren't available. So once again, build series, hundreds of photos available on this car.
Yep.
And you can see they're repairing the plenum before the plenums were available. We've now got those available, complete plenums. And a lot of the panels that we made on this are now being reproduced. Oh look, there's the Bambino
Yes.
in the background.
Right on cue.
So it was one of those full, quarters off, roof off, paint everything, reassemble, and then his brother-in-law actually painted the car, so it wasn't painted here. It was prepped here, taken out to a different site, painted, came back, and I ended up polishing it. And it was assembled here. And then you were here then, I think?
Yes, I was here. I helped with the assembly and
Assembly on that one. And then, rushing the deadline for Summernats, as per usual.
As usual, yes.
And there it is there. So top 60. It was very fresh on its one and only appearance there, and I think coupes are really hard classification to be in at Summernats. There's so many coupes there, so just to get in the hall as a coupe's pretty good in itself.
Big achievement.
And it was still pretty fresh, and there was probably a few loose ends that might have knocked it around a bit to maybe have not gone into maybe winning a coupe trophy or paint or something else. But yeah, it did really well. The stand got another recycle.
Yes.
And these are some photos that I had Sorgs do for me just personally, some nice professional photos of it. You can see up on the hoist there with a full 3-inch stainless exhaust, and he opted to paint that satin just to keep it a little bit low key. Had the long range tank in it, and then we made all the tailpipes in order to sort of look right from the outside, but yeah, it all fit in nice and good with a tricked up C4. And that motor that was in it then, which is not in it now, it's actually back to the matching engine number now. This motor here had the trumpet injection, the Hillborn.
Yes.
And Darren had actually done the majority of the work on that to actually convert it to electronic. And after a lot of effort, he eventually got it to work.
He got it to work.
Yep. And it had an RRS front end in it and the big brakes. And then he'd also gone down that whole Hoon car from McLeod Ford with the stripes on the outside and also the seats. Super cool car. And it's 7 or 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
That flies.
It does, doesn't it? So build series again, it'll be, I don't know, number 8, 9, 10, something like that in the build series. So that sort of gets that one out of the way. And that was here about 12 or maybe 18 months.
Close to 18 months.
Close to 18 months. What's happening here, Dale? So we're on a plane.
You needed a break.
Needed a break. Well, I'm not in it.
A short one.
And I'm doing the photos, and even the family can't remember why. I didn't fly with them. I turned up. It was a wedding around Summernats time again, but I can't remember when I got there and how I got there. Except I know I was there for the whole wedding. So that's my brother, obviously, and his daughter Catherine.
Yep.
And in Adelaide at Glenelg, and that was the church actually right in Glenelg, and then the big pub down on the beach for a nice reception. Yeah, awesome. Yep. It was really good. And the classic, the 3 kids, mate.
The 3 Musketeers.
The 3 Musketeers, yeah. My sister, Colleen, and my brother Reg. And then that one there, I was trying to get some photos with Heather and that in it. So that's my niece, Emily, and her partner, Kath.
Yep.
And obviously my sister was just in the last one. and then the grandchild.
Now that'd be Georgia.
Oh, that's
No,
Olivia.
it's Olivia. I just tested you.
Oh,
Had you worried.
I'm going, hang on a minute.
They're all that small at one
They
stage.
all look the same when they're that big. That's
that's
right.
true.
And I'm thinking, no, hang on a minute, she's coming up.
Olivia's
later.
the oldest.
Olivia's the oldest, that's right. She's 9 now. Yeah. So that was just one of those family weekends.
Yep.
Good get together. Everybody was there. Lee was there as well, so he was still in India at that stage, so he was down to Adelaide. So we're back home, and then we've got a new job on. So I got a call, and this came through one of those link-ups where Chubby gave me a call, you know, Mr. Chubb, from the VL territory, and he said, I got a mate whose dad got this Cobra that's something special, you know, that's been in a paint shop, got stuck there for 10 years, there's bits missing, all sorts of stuff. We'd be interested in helping them try and get it together. So he gave me the guy's number and we had a bit of a chat, and it was special, all right. It was one of the Bathurst ones. So it's number 24, and that's it being dropped off there on the tilt tray and the usual boxes of parts.
I've got all the parts.
I've got all the parts, they're in boxes. So he had the majority, and unfortunately when it was in that panel shop, some stuff had been mixed up, you know, like it didn't have the right radiator and it didn't have this and something else was missing. And so we had a box of parts and then we went through. So that's how it looked when we got it. And the process then was to work out what we had, work out what we were missing, and the little green round thing there, Dale, that's like a bilge pump out of a boat.
I'm going to say that looks very marine-like. Yes.
That Ford obviously worked out could manage the job of pumping the oil through the trans. So they'd actually put an oil cooler for the manual transmission for Bathurst as part of that 30. So it wasn't running, and we pulled that out and pulled it all apart, put new impellers and stuff in it. And when I got the numbers off it and followed through, it was a marine pump, and we managed to get all that working. And the other interesting one was that bracket there that's on the chassis.
Yes.
And all of this blue, you'll see in a minute, we got rid of most of that. But that bracket was another one that was put onto those 30s to stiffen up the pitman arm. So it was interesting to see those things because I'd already heard about it, but I never knew nothing about it. So we replaced what needed replaced in the front end, painted it in our the new steel one that we normally use, Newcast.
Yes.
VHT.
That's right. Yep.
And the brief here was, you know, there wasn't a lot of bucks to spend, but it was to make it all back together, roadworthy, and where I could try and put it back to how it should be. But clearly, you know, gearboxes and stuff are painted in it that weren't painted from the factory. So you can tell there by the steering column, but it obviously been kicking around the paint shop for a while. So we pulled all those things apart, made sure everything was working right. None of the bumpers had been painted inside, so we painted all the bumpers and the brackets, air cleaners, rocker covers, all that sort of stuff. And then I know you had the job, Dale, of using the old mother's VLR and trim cleaner. And we took what was some very average looking parts and cleaned those up to look new. And I don't think we had to chase too many bits. There was a few odds and sods.
No, I think we had most of it.
But you can see at the top there, the one with the switch in it that looks white would have been cleaned up and made black. So that's a good shot there of those shield seats that the Bathurst cars had.
Factory upgrade.
And they had that matching trim all the way through. So this won't be in the build series, and I don't have a massive amount of photos on it, but it was just a job that we did over, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks, I think, at the time.
It was a pretty short turnaround.
And because there was some mechanicals to do, and that's not necessarily my forte, I actually had my mate Rude come down. So Rodney Hawkins.
Rodney.
From Newcastle.
Mr. Rude.
Mr. Rude. So he came down, you know, we put, it had some oil leaks in the diff, so we put some seals in, or he put some seals in it. And then the engine, we got everything to look right and bought what we needed to get it to run. And then I had Rude go over it and give it a bit of a tune. So he's got the right shirt on.
Yes.
So yeah, he spent a bit of time, got it all to run. And like I said, we're working towards that roadworthy. So that's it there pretty much ready to leave and looking pretty sharp.
Mm.
So I'd, give it a polish where it needed, got the spoilers on it, everything to fit. Tried to, gap all the doors. We put all the windows to go up and down properly and all
Yep.
that sort of stuff. And repainted the mouldings around the windows, all those sorts of things. And turned out by this stage to look pretty sharp. And
Yeah.
then someone else was going to put the extra blue line on it because it didn't have the light blue line on it at that stage. So another little job we did that I'm really chuffed to be able to say that I've worked on a Bathurst copper. Because
Yeah, not many people, because there's not many around,
there's
really.
not many around, and the ones that are now are worth astronomical amount of money.
Crazy money.
Crazy money now, and it's good to see that some of them are still going. And that particular car, that family have owned that a very, very long time. Very long time. So it's another car out of the way,
Yes.
and there's Heather looking lovely,
Yes.
and it's birthday time.
Oh, the Astills like a party.
It's birthday time. So that's out the front of the shed here in that little
Yep.
area I've got, which is nice. So there's a few of the neighbours and
The
stuff
winter
there.
room.
I'm not going to try and name them all. So just another party.
Mm-hmm.
And the next photo we're looking at there now, that's Adam and Kylie from Tailspin.
Perry's Garage.
So in the last episode, I talked about, putting a stand up at Motorex
Yep.
to try and get the next job. And Adam and Kylie came along, got them on the line, reeled them in. I think it might have been the other way around.
I think it was the other way around.
I think it might have been the other way
I was
around.
going to say that.
So they came and had to talk to me, and one of their friends had recommended that they talk to me and have a bit of a yarn and see whether I'd be interested in working with them. And you can see all the stuff on the table there. They're very organised. When they turned up, they've got their laptops and all the rest of it. I just got my notepad and my pen. And they had like a program on the computer with all
Yep.
the pictures in it. Tell me,
Yep.
one.
Oh,
Slideshow.
slideshow, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yep.
a slideshow thing.
Yep.
With everything they had, what they wanted to do, really well organised, which was really cool. And we sat down to work out how we could actually cost it, how we could do it. And part of the brief would be that my involvement would not only be to help build the car, but to teach them as much as possible about building cars while we're doing it. And that worked out unbelievably well. And as we're going through these photos, I'll talk about others, we'll get bogged down, but you can see there, Adam's got the saw out on the FB. So they had a couple of FBs that they'd bought that were pretty much trashed anyhow, so
Yep.
it wasn't like they were cutting up a good one. And they bought those off a guy that already started cutting them up for drag cars.
Yes.
And we took the roof off. So I went down for a weekend, and in that weekend we cut the roof off 2 cars. The Skyline,
Just for fun.
yeah, the Skyline there was one that they seen on a tilt tray going to the tip. So they grabbed hold of the guy and got him to drop it at his place. So we had virtually a spare one of those, and we really had 2 FBs in case we'd made a mistake. So we cut the 2 roofs off, did a lot of measuring to work out what we were going to do, and then sat it in place and worked out how much we had to cut to get that down to some sort of level. And my plan for the weekend was to get to a stage by the end of it that I could leave them with a bit of a cardboard mock-up of what the car's going to look like, to see whether they really wanted to build it, because we're in a position where they had one front 3/4 drawing that someone drew 20 years earlier.
Yeah, that's what it all came from, was just this 2-dimensional picture, just almost like a cartoon.
Exactly.
And that was the inspiration behind the build.
So that was Steve Vesperman, and we had that drawing. It's on the wall there in the background.
Yep.
And at this point here, I've already taken the quarter panel off the right-hand side and put it on the left-hand side.
Yep.
And then I've got the guard from the right-hand side, put it on the left-hand side on the rear, and the roof off the Nissan to get a bit of a feel where we're going. And then we got some rattle cans and actually started to make it look as much as I can like a silhouette of what I thought they were going to end up with. I'm looking at it going, I don't know if I'd want to build it.
It was a very polarising idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I just said to them, I want you, they ended up putting a couple of wheels under it, and I couldn't find that photo, but they put a couple of wheels under it, and then I said, I want you to come out here every night and walk in, turn the light on, look at it and go, is that what I want to own for a very long time?
Yep.
Because you're going to commit a lot of time and a lot of money to this build, so you need to make sure it's what you want.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
I spoke to them a couple of weeks later, they said, yep,
Yep.
we want to do it.
At no point, I don't think, did they say that they weren't keen.
And they still love it, and it's in the shed and they drive it, and
Yep.
it's basically their club car. So what I'm going to do in the photos here, Dale, is I've got one section here of trying to make that front guard, which is actually a quarter panel,
Yep.
look like it sort of belongs. So once we got everything set up where we thought it needed to be, what we're looking at there is the gap between. So they were actually at work. This was on the Friday. I used to go down for 3 days,
Yes.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every 4 weeks. And then I'd leave them a list of jobs to do, come back here.
Yep.
So this is Canberra, I'd go to Canberra. So what I've done here now is just cut some little strips of 1 mil so I can bend them by hand and sit them there to get a shape, and then I've put masking tape over that to get a bit of an idea of where I think the panel's going to go, and then jumped on the English wheel, which I hadn't used a lot, so I'm sort of learning as I go.
Yep.
To actually get a shape that I think's going to fill that, and then I'm sending them text messages while they're at work saying, does this look something like what you think you might like?
Yep.
So this is, I think actually after 2 trips, I think I did one side and then went back, the next trip, and you can see Adam in the background there.
It came together very well.
So that just trying to give you an idea, just one little component of this car, and then that's it there back at my place when it's complete to show you where those sort of panels go, and then that's it once it's filled and in epoxy.
Yep.
So just that one little section, multiply that by about 50, and that gives you an idea of how many photos we've got. And I don't know how I could
ridiculous amount.
Think about trying to jam that car into one episode, but we'll see how we go.
It'll be a challenge.
So that's it here. Who's that in the background?
Oh, some bloke taking photos.
Mr. Walton on the phone, the logistics manager.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it.
And then from the rear then, we had to make the quarters, the bumpers, all those bits and pieces. The boot is actually a bonnet. I don't know.
It still messes with your head today.
It does.
It does.
And then we ended up painting it up at PPG.
Yep.
So I haven't got a lot of that in here because there's way too much footage. And when we do the build series on this, it'll be really cool. And that's John Aristis from PPG. So, we all know John now from my previous cars. He was involved in the Flag and the Mustang. Yeah. This one, and of course now he's going to be involved in Boss XC as well. Yes. And considering now he's very high up in PPG, he's jammed behind a desk most of the time. I really feel privileged to have him still involved doing what we're doing. So that's Johnny there, and we spent quite a few weeks in the paint stage up there.
Yep.
And then while things are happening elsewhere, Kylie's been grinding up all the aluminium parts for the engine and the undercarriage and all that sort of stuff. And then they came down to me and, beautifully prepared by Kylie.
Yep.
And then they were all primed, rubbed, painted, and ridiculously cleared, sanded, flowed to end up with that sort of result. And this next little run of photos is another example of the time involved in this car. And it was all about achieving points. Because a lot of people say, why would you put that many colours on a car, blah, blah, blah. It's really about comparing one car to another and saying which car has done the most amount of work. And provided you do the work, you do a lot of work, but you do it all well, you're going to score well in the points. So the sump off the engine here, is about a 4-colour process, and I think I kept a little track on this. It was like about 12 hours or something to paint the sump.
Yeah.
And if you relate that to the whole car, it's just crazy. And you can see the detail there in the engine, and Kylie ground all those original manifolds and all up as well. So a lot of work to make, basically a VN.
It had a big impact.
Motor look like that, very much so. And once again, the colours, 3 colours, had the interior colour, the undercarriage colour, and then the external colour. And then we tied those FB stars right through the whole build.
Kept that theme.
So that'll be a big one in the build series. and I've just tried to give enough there, and there'll be a little bit more about it later in the show, because while it's coming and going and everything's going on, I got another call from someone that had a coupe, and it had been stuck in a panel shop again.
It was in the too hard basket, Howard. Really.
So this one, when we got it, it looked to me like, I reckon someone didn't tighten the wheel nuts up, and they drove down the road and both wheels fell off, because the back of the car was quite bent.
Yep.
And the owner had sourced some new old stock quarters, or half quarters as we call them nowadays, because a lot of panel boutiers used to buy a full quarter and cut the front off it to do a dog leg, and the rest got hung up in the roof, and a lot of those used to kick around. And you can see there's obviously a left and a right, but one of them, the side indicator's going the wrong way. So we had like a late XB and an early XB light. There might be an XA. I think the same. A and B's the same. So at this point, I'm just trying to piece things together to see what we've got and whether we've got enough, because someone else had cut the originals off, and then it sat, and the owner pulled it, started looking around, someone sent him my way. So this was a bit of a challenge, and I would probably not have taken this on if I hadn't have been doing the work on tailspin, because I had to weld all the way through panels with tailspin. So when this came along, I went, well, it's just another panel.
I've done that not that long ago.
I've done that the other day. So I'd learnt to do that with the TIG. So there's actually a couple of videos on my Facebook page that you and I played with, and I'd say the date was like 2015, when we had this bright idea that we might be able to do stuff on video.
It's the precursor to YouTube.
So it took like 7 years to become a reality, but there's some stuff on there, and I might actually drag that out and get it up on YouTube. So cut them, got them all lined up, and replaced a lot of the boot area with the panels that we sell. And in fact, some of those there, the Beaver panel, we used to put new ends and stuff on it. You can now buy those as a complete unit. And we worked through that process, and there's old tailspin in the background. And got the spot welder going, and then making everything we need to do to get it all back together. So it was a bit of a challenge. And one of the challenges was that we needed to put that side light the right way around. So you can see at the top there running this way where I've welded that up, and then we needed to do that. So I'd seen someone that had made a press for pressing a bonnet scoop into a bonnet. And I said to you, I think at the time, we should be able to make that, though. So here it is, and we still use it. We still make panels for people with this. So it's a couple of bits of plate, and then it took quite a while for Dale to make these. So you got obviously an inner and an outer, and it fits together, and the little slot in the middle with the holes is just enough so that the metal can press. And you put that in, put a couple of bolts through it, and it's got to be curved this way as well to the shape of the panel.
To match the quarter.
Match the quarter, pull it up, tighten it up, take it off, and Bob's your uncle.
There you go.
Looks like a genuine one.
Instant recessed.
So it's one of those things that I'd seen it done. Can't be that hard.
That's your famous line.
I think it took you a week, didn't it, to make it?
It was a fair while.
It took a fair while, and of course you're a fitter. Fitter?
Yes.
Fitting machinist?
Yeah, fitter machinist in a former life.
So it shouldn't have been too hard. No. So the trick is getting the tolerances right, so the radiuses are right and all those sorts of things. And I mean, I work with a lot of guys now that make our panels for us, or make panels, and I on-sell those that do all that, because I don't know that I've got the patience. I can polish a car for 100 hours, but I haven't got the patience for that. So there it is with the left and right. And like I say, we punch a few of those out for people now. And then the TIG's running there, and I'd painted all of the inside yellow like I do, assembled it all, spotted it all back together, and then this car went back to the owner to go off to whoever was going to paint the car, because at that point in time I wasn't interested in doing it. No. The booth was new, but I was a primer booth, like I'd painted a little Bambino in it, and the car went back as pretty much as you see it there now for someone else to take on the job. So, and I to this day don't know whether it's ever been done.
No.
Could be running around for all I know. But it was something that came to us that was almost on the scrap heap. And
it was sort of a last resort, wasn't it?
yeah, we got it back together, and it's moved on. So now we go a bit away from the usual ABCs. I got a call from a guy, or it might have been a Facebook message, from Western Australia that was looking to buy a replica XY, and it was about 50 k's down the road from here, and said, would you, can I pay you to go and have a look at it? I said, well, not really what I do, but, and we talked about it, and he sounded like a nice guy, so I said, look, I'll go out and have a look. So I went out, took some photos, met the guy, at the servo, took some photos, drove it around the block, come back, told him what I thought of it, and he bought it. And I'd given him a few things that I knew were wrong. One of the door hinges was a bit loose and a few odds and sods. So when we got it back here and we put it on the hoist, had a few oil leaks and things. So he got us to do the repairs on it. So it needed a rear main seal, and it was a really nice car, but it just had 20 little things wrong with it that it didn't look right as a GT.
Yes.
The wrong colour plug leads, not the right coil, something wrong here, something wrong there, that wire not right. And of course Darren's the man, he's right into all of that.
Mr. Ford,
So we pulled it out, put a rear main in it, tidied it all up, made sure everything was right. The clutch line was rubbing on the extractors and all those little things that we all know about with a Ford. Give it a coat of blue, and then put it back in the hole, added all the right bits from the right shops, and got the motorcraft leads and all the different things.
Looks like a GT motor
to make it look like a really nice genuine GT. And we got some CAD done, and then we pulled all the door trims off, fish oiled it all, basically went through and tidied it up so it'd be a nice tidy car for him. And then I give it a quick colour sand and a polish with the old mothers. And heavy cut. Back then I would have went heavy cut number 2, and then one of the waxes. And of course, progression now that we use different finishing products now, still using heavy cut. And as you know, I like the old lamb's wool. So that came out really sweet, and that was Vermilion Fire. Super nice car. And it sat here for quite some time, and then when he could find someone, he got it shipped back over the west. And for the money he paid for it, when I went and looked at it, I thought he was crazy, and now it's probably gone up another 30 grand. So he was obviously a collector and knew what he was talking about. So it was an interesting one for us to do. Darren and I really enjoyed the process, and I think we did a good job for the guy. So the next photo, Dale, is my beloved Land Cruiser.
Oh, faithful.
Gone. So
no more Ford dealer term.
So what I ended up with is I've got a truck in the trailer, like a Land Cruiser in a trailer, and customer cars. So all of a sudden I'm also now the removalist for all these cars. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to build another show car. I don't need a trailer for what I do. We tilt tray everything around. Insurance isn't all. You're better off to tilt tray anyhow. So I decided, look, I'm going to get rid of the Land Cruiser. Gone. Going to get rid of the trailer.
Gone.
Do you remember what happened though, don't you? It had stickers on it, and we thought, we'll get the stickers off it.
Shouldn't take you long, Dale, for a couple of hours.
So we ended up giving a coat of PPG, industrial, in the booth. So that turned into a bit of a monster, but it came out nice, and we got good money for it. And that went to a museum, actually, in Shepparton. It was a nice trailer. And at the same time, I thought, I'm not really using the Mustang as much as I should be. Let's get rid of that too.
It was like a spring clean, wasn't it?
It was. And I made up my mind that's what I was going to do. So I set it up on car sales to go on 2 weeks before Summer Nats. And then took it to Summer Nats with the for sale on it. No, it might have been 2 days before, not 2 weeks.
It wasn't long before.
2 days before. And then that sit out the front of the PPG stand on PPG Corner there at Summer Nats, and did a deal with a guy at Summer Nats, and it went to South Australia. But not before we actually changed the manual out to an auto.
Yeah, wanted to convert it for his wife, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's funny that I didn't even think, there's probably photos somewhere of that. But anyhow.
There would be.
We did a little
job
of that.
Wait for the build series.
So boom, it's gone. And then, so the Cruiser's gone and I had a replacement, so I'm looking around for a nice ute. And I was eyeing off a blue Super Pursuit in Victoria with fairly low Ks on it. And I thought, oh, Victoria, got to go down there and all that sort of stuff. So lo and behold, one pops up, local. And I've gone, I'll go and check that out. So I've gone down and this was it. And pretty much, I've probably polished it there because it's got the plate and all already.
Looks shiny.
But it had white stickers on the bonnet. And when I did my research, it should have had black. But the book in the car, the first Rego in Queensland was McFast. And when I polished it, I could see the big M, the golden arches, still on the door where the paint had faded. So clearly it belonged to a McDonald's franchisee, then it was his toy. And then when I did, once I get these sort of cars, people want to tell you what the story is. So it turned out that it had been 3 people had owned it, but it was always a toy. And I bought it with 67,000 on it. And the guy that I bought it off had messed it, put a hood line in it and a few other things. So it was a pretty tidy car, nice and straight, and just need a little bit of fiddling to get it to where I wanted to be. And then I had the stripes put on it. But the plan was to have a blue one, so now I've got a red one. And then
I'm not going to say.
We sold the Honda.
Yes.
And then we started looking for a GT for Heather. And the one that popped up that was the perfect buy was red as well. So now we've got 2 red
must
cars.
Must be an omen. They almost look HSV-like, Howard.
No, FPV, mate. FPV. Don't get me in trouble again.
No, I'm working
Goodness
on it.
me.
Working on it.
So we still have those cars today. And
still drives well.
They both drive well.
We went to Melbourne in the ute.
It's been everywhere. I think it's up to 137 now. Yeah, I really do enjoy driving it. Still gets a lot of comments. People want it. People that don't know the cars sort of think it's still a current. Is that a new car or how old's that car? And you tell them the age of it, which is now getting up there, 16 years old or something. Because I think of that bubbly look, it still looks a bit later model. And then there's some photos here. When I got the GT, it had done 9,000 Ks. It come out of South Australia, but of course. You've got the birthday.
Got to have the Astill touch.
Got to have a birthday. So give that the usual mother's once over. Look at that. Chalk and cheese, mate.
Oh, so shiny.
So polished everything, including all the tips. And that car is 100% original. And I'd like to keep it that way. I had it serviced the other day and I went in, the guy's proud as punch, said, I'd changed the wipers over. It might have been the ute actually. Changed the wipers over to the new, better ones. I go, where's my old ones? Well, I wanted them back on it. Because I want to try and keep both of them as they were. I don't really want to see them change. So, unmolested. Nearly out the front. I think I was painting the driveway that day and I thought, it looks like a photo opportunity. So talking about photo ops, look at that. So that's Dad's caddy. Now we've had that, so Dad passed. And I opted to take that and not so much look after it, but he had a handful of cars when he passed still. So there's 3 of us, so we sort of worked out who wanted what and away we went. So we'd been cruising that, and that particular day I went on a club cruise with one of Darren's Ford clubs, like GT clubs or whatever, and I said, look, I'll take the caddy for a run. So Heather and I went up there, and that's us out in the street there at the front of the pub where we had lunch. And when I was doing my photos and stuff, I thought, I spotted those, but I don't know whether it was around that time, but we'd pretty much, or I'd made up my mind, it needed to go too. Because as you know, it was in the way.
It was.
Had too many cars for the amount of spots we had. So I advertised it, I think on car sales again, and this gentleman here rang me a couple of times from Brisbane and we ended up doing a deal, and he caught the train down to Dapto and I picked him up in town, brought him up here, and he hopped in it and drove it back to Brisbane. Never heard from him since.
Didn't need to. It was
so I guess it's
super
probably
reliable.
Still going. So we've had this massive clean out. We've got a lot of room now and a bit more room about the place to take on another car.
Must be another time for a car.
And I think Marco might have known because that car never really left.
No.
This car was here a long time. Not so much in the build, just even after the build.
It's here longer than some of the cars you've owned, I think.
I think so. So this was a 4-door XA. And it was a Fairmont, and Marco had bought it, taken it to someone to get all the fab done. So roll cage, twin turbo, chopped the front up a bit to get that in, and exhaust, and the cage, and contacted me about doing the rust. So I went up and had a look at it, and I've gone, "Ooh, would have been good if you did the rust before you made all the mods on it." But anyhow, it was another one of those inheritances where we'd taken on something, and I say we because that's you there on the grinder.
I got scars for this car.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another story.
So it had a fair bit of cancer. So we did our usual and started pulling it apart. So plenum, sills. Had to make up guards and stuff for it.
Yep.
You know, blasted as we went, de-skinned everything, and got back to a point where we could put it back together. So once again, you look at the front of that guard. So once again, build series.
Yep.
It'll all be in there. This is really just to give you an idea what the sort of things we've been up to. And of course, you know, can we get the gaps right, Howard? And that was how we got it at that point. And so it was a Windsor-based motor.
Yep.
And then the turbos and the exhaust and stuff were on it. And that's the later diff. So it had a diff set up on normal leaf spring, and we ended up putting in Gazzard Brothers single leaf, sway bars, coilovers, all that sort of stuff. So built to go. It ended up on a soft churn making 1300 or something.
Serious grunt.
Yeah, it's got a fair bit happening, and that was all. The motor and all was done up at Sam's at West End, and Con locally from Wollongong Automotive Services was doing the churn. So our job was body and assembly, and Marco used to come down on a Friday night and put a bit in as well, do a few bits and pieces, and he'll bob up in the build series. So we're getting close there, and then a bit of colour.
Was a good colour.
And then all of those ancillary parts, which is always a bit of a bugbear.
Lots and lots and lots.
And you talk about the colour, so summer gold, so it was the original factory summer gold colour, and I just had John mix that up for me, you know, in a 2K, clear over base, obviously being matte when it was in the colour, and then it was a Delete Stripe GT lookalike with 20-inch Simmons, 8s and 10.5s. So we had to make a bit of room on the back for those. So build series again, super nice car, finished off all the way through, pretty much stock interior with the cage.
Yep.
And then it's made one appearance, and that was at Motor X, and that was probably driven by me. Marco's not the show car sort of guy, and I said, well, look, I don't build cars unless they go somewhere. I'm not going to.
Got to show it once.
I'm not going to put my whole heart and soul into a car and nobody sees it. So it went there without rego, and the engine wasn't going because the engine still had to be built at that point. We had, you know, what they fabbed off, and I'd got it to a point where everything fitted. And I said, look, let's take it up there while it's together. And then we ended up getting it going, and it actually drove out of here when it was finished. So that's a few years ago now, because that was in Sydney.
That's getting on.
And there's a nice video on all of the car on Street Machine, where they interviewed me at Motor X with the car. And there's another nice video of it here driving out. So super tough. Got the nice look about it.
Very clean. Straight.
There she goes.
There goes another one.
Yeah. Back to tailspin.
Meanwhile, back to tailspin.
So tailspin's going on now 3 years, probably 4, whereby I'd tripped down there for a couple of years. The car came back here for me to do metalwork, finish the metalwork and do fillers and paint.
Yep.
And then Adam and Kylie used to come here for a weekend every 3 weeks, and they'd stay with us, the same as I stayed with them. And obviously we're all getting pretty close, and another adopted couple of kids.
Yes, yep.
As I do, as I do. So the picture there is the poster for the car that they were taking around at the shows, and this was the debut. So this was 2016 Motor X.
Yep.
So at this point in time, and you see Adam and Kylie there getting interviewed, so this was like, we'd Facebooked it all, so people are aware of the build. It had been in Street Machine magazine, you know, in bare metal and those sorts of things. And leading up to Motorex, to compete in the Grand Master or Superstars, you need to pre-qualify,
Yes.
or you can get a wild card. So if something turns up and they really want you to be in that, they give you the option to some cars to say, look, we think the car's worthy. You can have a wild card, or you can compete and potentially qualify for next year.
Yeah.
And I said to Adam Kiley, look, at that point in time, X-Boss had just come back from the US, and it was the front runner in the country at that point in time.
So it had been at SEMA, and was it SEMA?
No, went to for the Grade 8 at Oaks and Rogers show, I think, whatever the show is. So it had been over there, done really well in the US, came back, and I said to them, you've got two choices. You can be judged in elite and qualify for the following year, or you can accept the wild card and in doing so then compete with all of the cars that had pre-qualified for that year. And they said, you know what? We've done the best we can, just let's do it.
So we'll go the wild card.
So they accepted the wild card and then competed in Superstars at the 2016 Motorex. And this was the car there on display. And they built a really nice display. And we were really happy to get 3 gold and 3 silver at that particular event.
Impressive,
And they then started to do basically what I class as the show circuit. So they did there, and then they progressively went around the country and did really, really well with the car, including Summer Nats. And I don't have a whole lot of footage on there because there's just too much of it. So that was 2016. So that was July, and then of course we got Summer Nats. So they prepping the car for Summer Nats. It was Summer Nats 30. So I get a call from Owen Webb to say, look, at Summer Nats 30, we're going to do a few special things. Do you think, have you got the number for your old blue car? Has Mario still got it? Blah, blah, blah. So I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure he has. So I rang Mario and said, look, this is what we'd like to do, and ended up working out with him that I'd be happy to take the car there and look after it, but I wanted to bring it to my place and give it a bit of a tidy up to make sure it was up to scratch to go there and be put on display. So he got a super duper service.
Absolutely.
And I was happy to see the car go down there. And I said the only provision I had was it went back to how it was when he won it, because it had been in his ownership the whole time, and at some point in time someone had decided to put their own little flair on it with a few flames and things.
A few little colours.
So it came down, and it obviously hadn't had a lot of love. What I will say for Mario is he's kept it all this time, and they didn't mess with it.
No.
It was all there. It was just 25 years old.
Yeah, and it's a lot of work to keep something like that in show condition.
For sure. So we got it down, and you can see in the wheel arch there that he'd driven it a bit, which was good. That's what cars are for. And our role then was to give it a tidy up. So we just started pulling gear off it and started polishing things up. And you'll see here in a minute. So all the nitrous and all, someone had repainted fittings. I had them in a particular colour that looked like the Speedflow. So they came in red and blue, and I wanted them all blue when I had it. And I'd painted them, and then someone decided to paint them again in the body colour, which they never were. So we stripped all that off, started cleaning things up. Darren did a lot of the polishing there by hand on the job. And then all the little ancillaries, we polished everything, and then I masked up all those we polished all the stainless steel lines, back masked everything, and then I painted all of the fittings. So it would look new without replacing everything. And that colour there, Dale, is a Holden colour. Does that make you feel happy?
It makes me feel so much better.
So it's a HQ colour called Cyan, Cyan, Cyan Metallic. HQ. So that's what we used on that.
So we are converting him slowly.
And then we rebuilt the carbies. Dave next door come over, he's a boat mechanic, so he come over and we did that one night, and then I shot a bit of colour on them, which I just happened to have.
It's just 25 years
25 years later. It was acrylic, it was still good.
Doesn't go off.
And then all that other stuff they painted, I got Johnny Aristis up at PPG to colour match the colour, because I've got an old Dulux formula for it, but I didn't have obviously a 2K formula. So here it is starting to go back together now. So everything polished and ta-da!
Looks like the magazine again.
Looks brand new again. So I had to get an air filter made for it, so I went back to finer filter because that's what it was. So all of those things, we put everything back to the way it was, and then started cleaning the body up. And it had a few little door dings and stuff in it. So I got Zoran, the local PDR guy in. Zoran's PDR. That's what when I looked him up, that's what he is. So I couldn't find. I got a little video somewhere with him there with his little hammer tapping away at it, which people find quite crazy. So it came up really good. And after the summer nats, Murray ended up bringing it back, and we ended up doing some mechanicals on it as well. So we put new rotors on it and rebuilt all the calipers and painted everything, and then tidied up a bit of stuff on the front end. So the car was back to being drivable.
That's the way it was.
And it was running when it came here, and we just got everything run a bit, put some plugs in it, changed the oil, messed about, and made it nice and blingy. And then I entrusted it to Adam and Kylie to come and pick it up, because I'd sold me trailer.
Yeah, you don't need a trailer.
Don't need a trailer. So they come and grabbed it for me, and we took it down, and then I just happened to still have some of the display boards and things.
Yeah, I noticed one in the middle there, Howard. Yeah,
there is that one. So someone that's actually made that up, which was nice of them, to let everyone know what the car was. So I managed to score that because I had the car there. So, and I just noticed you can't get away from it, though. I see the writing down the bottom for some of that. Is that Sandman?
That is Sandman.
Crazy, isn't it?
Hey, so everything's old's new again.
Bloody Holdens. Anyhow, so that was a really good thing to do.
Yep.
It was lovely to have it back.
Bit of nostalgia.
And I spent a fair bit of time standing with it talking to people, but there was times where it got too much emotionally, and a lot of people were very open about how much that car meant to them and what they'd done in their life. And
young fellas had that on their poster on their wall and would dream about what they're going to do when they're older. And
Yep, so that was summer nats out of the way. So Kylie had a good red hot go at Grand Champion.
Yep.
And got in the last three for that.
Yep.
And then the bloody thing got heat soak or whatever and didn't want to start, so we don't know where we ended up, but we ended up pushing it out, which was a bit embarrassing. But she did all the driving events really well, and it ran pretty well. But they'd actually done the Super Cruise into town, and then a couple of club runs and stuff with it.
Yeah, they love driving it.
So they were then looking that, okay, we're going back to Motorex in July, and they contacted me about giving a bit of a tidy up. So they came down, and I gave them a week, fixed price for a week. I said, I'm yours for 7 days. While you're in the shed, I'll work with you. But if you go inside, I go inside. So they came and stayed for a week, and we pretty much pulled the thing apart, and then went about repainting or repairing any damage that had been done in that period.
All
and
bits that Dale had worked on,
That was more about stuff that was moving, or
just getting
they had a bit of a fuel leak on the manifold that did a bit of paint and that sort of stuff. So, and then we give it a full repolish. And John, who painted the car, John and myself painted the car up at PPG, and John come down for a day, and we went over it again and give it another polish to make sure it was the best it could be for that year. And this was out the front of the house. So
it popped.
It was looking pretty sharp. And then these photos here were some that Adam had done on it. And it just shows you that the amount of detail and time that went into this car.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
Many hours of colour sanding and polishing. And
that's for sure.
Yep.
So that was made super duper. And then that next one there, I hope that comes out. It's a little tiny one on my screen there now. But Heather and I and Darren and Beck on the plane going down to Motorex to see how things would go.
Yep.
So by this stage, Adam and Kylie had done a lot of shows, and they had their system set up. So normally the first one we were all there helping, Fuzzy and the boys and all were there, and we're all doing our thing.
They were old hats, but at this stage they knew exactly what was going on.
They had a system, and they said we're right. So we turned up as tourists, and we went down to the presentations, and lo and behold, it made a clean sweep. So unbelievable. First time that had happened in Superstars. So gold medal in all 7 categories. And I think it was a tribute to Adam and Kylie, and probably primarily Kylie's ability to maintain and make that car better and better and better. I taught her how to polish, and she's probably better than me now because she's more patience than me. Where every part of that car was as good as you could make it.
Yep.
And then that's me. We had a bit of a night out that night. That's a big chunk of aluminium.
So you should, because I mean that consumed your life for the best part of 4 years.
It was, yeah. It was a major thing, and if you weren't working on it, you were thinking about it.
No, absolutely.
And there's old Daz in the corner. I think that might be Beck hanging onto the trophy, actually.
So it didn't fall on Darren. Yep.
So that's a good one there of them grabbing the accolades, and they really, I put a lot in, but they put a massive amount into that car, and were very hands-on and did a large proportion of the work, the heavy lifting on that car.
Yep.
We did a bit as well.
We did a bit, yeah.
But there was a lot done
full
themselves.
credit to Kylie and Adam.
So it'll be in the build series, obviously. We move on to another party.
Gotta love a party.
So I said to Louise, what was this one? She goes, it was my mum's birthday. I did the spread, and I go, it was very nice too. And there we are. So the kids are growing up, starting to grow up now. So out in the games room, out here. And then we're getting close to the end. I didn't think we had 266 photos tonight, Dale.
Yes.
And we've got a couple of minutes to go, so we're going to go over, but not by much.
Not by much. We've done really well.
So the next one is a Holden.
Yes.
Another Holden.
I had one of these.
Back to back.
Stato.
A Stato. So everyone knows Dave lives next door, and Dave's a bit of a revhead. And once he moved in next door. They hadn't been to Summernats for a while, so they come down to the Summernats. And I said to them, when they come home, I said, you guys ought to build a Summernats special. Well, we were thinking about that ourselves. So we got our heads together and it all got carried away. So we ended up with the Stato because he wanted an LS and something bigger. So cut the roof off.
Weld the doors up.
Under my guidance, sort of welded it all up. And so he did all that over his place.
Yep.
Then as you can see there now, it's at my place. So I had to weld up the door handles and the finer stuff. And then that's back at his, all bare metal. And then back over at my joint again. So the hole in the fence there is where Dave's is. So backwards and forwards.
Yep.
And his mate Joel is a painter. So he was hanging off the gun. But one day, I think it was 5, when we bogged it up, there was 5 of us in here.
Many hands make light work.
Light work. Yep. So it was a bit of a wham bam, but it's held up really, really well.
It has.
And then obviously I used a bit of influence to get a bit of colour and some wheels and stuff for him. And they did a really good job finishing it off. And there we are with the mothers again.
Yep.
So given a quick colour sand. This is probably a week or two before the Nats, I imagine.
Probably only a week.
And then there it is, cruising around with the brolly. And they've had a massive amount of fun in that car.
Yep.
And he's every year now he adds a bit more horsepower and a bit more because the boys like doing a bit of a skid.
Yes.
So
he's got a heavy right foot out, Dave.
They'll be all empty. They'll be all entered again for this year and be heading down there and have a bloody ball.
Yep.
So that was just another car that was sort of hanging around doing things. And then we've now got a grandchild.
Granddaughter number 2.
Number 2.
I'll get it right
so
this
young
time.
Georgia.
This is
Look at
Georgia.
that. It's on Georgia. It's on there for me.
We should have written Olivia on the other one. There's
Michael.
There's Olivia.
And then back to the church for the christening.
Yep.
And then we had a really nice lunch over at the Grange Golf Club. It's a good day out. And they had face painting for the kids.
Yep. So you're into that.
And the big kids. Well, the granddaughter said, kids, what about you, Grandpa? I go, yeah,
okay.
Give that a go. And then Lee's back living with us, so Lee was there. And then, that bloke.
There's Stu.
There's Stewie from golf. So it's interesting when you do all of this, because I'd obviously play a bit of golf, but I don't have any photos, because we don't walk around the golf course with a camera taking photos. No. When this popped up, I thought, I'm going to put that in, because not so much right at the moment because I'm too bloody busy, but normally I would spend 2 days a week with Stewie and a couple other guys that we play with.
Yep.
And we've been and seen a lot of bands and stuff together. And I thought I'd throw Stuart in. And for those people that might recognise him, he's a very good guitar player and an exceptional snooker player.
Billiards and snooker.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if you recognise him, that's where he comes from. So
now, this must have been a fancy event out because you've got your blingy ring.
Got
on.
me bling on, mate. Well, that's a going out
special occasion.
Special occasion. So we're nearly at the end.
Ooh, we are.
So is that the back of your head, Dale?
No, it looks like the back of my melon, but it's a cake.
It's a cake. So we're up to 60.
Someone's 60th.
It's my 60th. So I've decided that I'm going to finish this program at episode 12.
Yep.
The bio. Episode 12, which we cut off at 60. And everyone knows
we do about 5 years.
I'm a little bit older than that because I'm done chasing photos for now, and there'll be one more somewhere down the track. So 60th, got the family back together.
Yep.
Got a few family and friends in for a bit of a shindig, which is a really good night. And there's that classic photo again with the three of us. And then a bit of golf. So at that stage, Lee started to have a bit of a hit.
Yep.
And he had a hit, you and him, won an event over at Port.
Yep. And there's
Rocket. That's young Rodney.
Yep.
Who's back playing golf again now.
Good to hear.
In Broken Hill.
Good on you, Rocket.
And now, Dave next door thought he'd be clever.
Dave's a stirrer.
He thought he'd be clever and he goes, I reckon I'll get Howard a buddy jump out of a plane job.
Yeah.
And
he won't do that.
And he asked Heather and she said, he'll do it. Don't worry about that. So anyhow, they bought it and they give it to me and I opened it up and I went, oh, cool, I always wanted to do that. And they went, oh. So if you ever think about that you wouldn't mind doing that, do it.
Don't hesitate. It
was a great experience. I don't know if I'd go and do it again, but the expectation flying up, and then I didn't have any trouble stepping out, but just to do it was really cool. Yeah, I really did enjoy it.
Yep.
So that was just to mark the old 6-0, and then I'm going to finish up.
Your favourite.
Now, I haven't done this for ages, and I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to give it another run, I think.
Yeah,
for a long period there, I used to have an appointment at 4 o'clock I had to go to every week.
Yep.
And when I'd get in the car to go, it's 3:50, I better go, because I need to down at Dappo. I would wait for the 351 and screenshot it and bang it up. And people always say to me, every time I see 351, I think of you. So there's some of the ones that relate to this program that I was on my Facebook page when I was looking for photos.
You even found one on a golf course one day.
Yeah, I did. Well, I always take it. Red Bull.
Yeah, the Black Bull.
No, the Black Bull.
Black Bull
has got a par 4 there that's 351 metres off the back. And there was the other day there was one when we went up to that charity game.
Yes, at Cabramatta.
At Cabramatta. No, I haven't used that. I'll have to dig that out.
Don't encourage him.
Yep. Thank you very, very much for hanging with us. We're not too far over time. I thought we might have been further over, but so much has gone on, so many cars, dealing with all these customers and family and friends. Really appreciate you hanging in there.
Yep.
And
big thanks to Lovell's Automotive Systems for their sponsorship.
For sure.
It's helped us get through this series.
Yeah, and they're the sponsor for the Build Series. And that'll take us right through until January. So every second week on the Thursday, that'll get us through to about January, I think. So we're going to go back, and I just started pulling a few photos together. So I've got a small amount of the panel van.
Yep.
So it'll probably be the panel van in with the Burgundy build, because back then we weren't taking as many photos. And then each car of mine, and then we'll go into the customer cars right through. And by the time we get to the end, we should have Boss XC.
Yeah, we'll be
ready.
Be
the last one.
We'll be ready for another bio by the end of that.
I'll squeeze it in somewhere between here and then. But it's a very lengthy process to pull together the information to be able to do this. And I
get the easy part. How I get the hard part.
I have enjoyed it, but at the same token, sometimes it gets pretty hard. So thank you very much. If you get a chance, subscribe. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it. Ring the bell.
That's it. Hit the like.
Hit the like button.
And we'll see you in the Build Series.
I think that's the end of it. Thank you very much. Bye, Dale.
Bye, Howard.
See you later, guys.
Cheers.